But I'm thinking back when I got involved in this, and it was Easter of 2019, and a friend of mine told me he was going to fly in and go out to the Middleton unit, which is in Abilene, and do an evangelistic service. Actually, it ended up being 4 services for Easter, Saturday and Sunday. And I thought, well, that's great. That's wonderful. I'm going to pray for you. I'm proud of you. I think you're doing a wonderful thing. But I'm glad it's you and not me. But I think he told me like about a month in advance, and like every day I kept thinking, man, I think I'm supposed to go, but I didn't want to, because my goal in life is to be comfortable, and that was very uncomfortable. I knew it would be very uncomfortable for me to go out there. But as the days went on, I just felt convinced I was supposed to do that. So I kind of begrudgingly went out there. But I tell you, once I was inside the yard and we had all of our guys lined up, and they said, let's greet all the men as they come out. That's when everything changed. These guys started coming out single file, and I thought, okay, these are convicts. I don't know if they're murderers or what they are, what they've done, but I'm sure they deserve to be here. But we had 1,300 men come out that first day because we had 4 services, and every one of them, with the exception of one, looked me in the eye, shook my hand, or gave me a fist bump, and expressed some kind of appreciation for the fact I was there. And I was just blown away. I thought, why are these guys so appreciative? And that was what I learned, is if you look into their eyes, and you see there's an actual soul in there, a lost soul that's looking for love, looking for hope. And that just changed everything. Even the guys with tattooed faces expressed that appreciation. And so it was one of the longest, I wouldn't say it was the hardest, but it was a long day, and but it ended up being one of the best days of my life. And after that, I thought, I gotta have more of this. I go because I believe that what we're doing is changing the lives of men in prison, but more so than that, I know it's changed me.
You were talking about, looking someone directly in the eyes. And that's the thing when we go. I mean, when you pray with these guys and they're looking you right in the eyes, you see Jesus in them.
Yeah.
I mean, you do. And it's different than anything else I've ever experienced from a ministry standpoint. And when you see a grown man cry, wow. I mean, it's just, you're doing something for Christ that makes a difference in another person's life. And it's not, and the give back part of it is just incredible. I mean, you know how Jesus changed your own life. You look at that man in the eyes, and you see that change, and that's amazing ministry.
Right. First, from where I come, you show loyalty, you show friendship, and you show love when you visit people in the hospitals, in the jail, and when they are in bankruptcy. That's where I come from. That's how I was grow up in my neighborhood. So then I start to come to the church, and the Bible invite my soul, So now it's a different thing, because the meaning is not only show loyalty. The meaning to go to the prison for me is show who he really is, because it's not about me, how I show loyalty or friendship or love to somebody who is in jail. For me, is to share his love. We are only tools on his hands. That's why I do this.
Well, God created us for relationship with him and a relationship for one another. And you've got these guys in there that they're lost. They don't have anybody. Right. And then when you go in, and it may just be for a couple hours or whatever, but when you can love on them and express hope and speak something positive into them, it just changes everything. So, and I think that's why Jesus said to do that, to go visit people, especially the downtrodden, because they're ready to receive it. Right. And these guys, as I'm sure you guys will agree, they're anxious to receive a message of hope. And we're not professionals. We just take the simple gospel to them, and they're ready to receive it. So.
It's awesome. So the last time I went, the praise band was playing, and we're standing on the rows, and you're watching the guys sing, and so a particular guy caught my eye, And I mean, this guy was singing, had his eyes closed. I mean, you could see the Spirit working inside of this man. And this guy was, you could tell visually, he lived a hard life. I mean, really a hard life. And I was just looking at that, and I was just like, man, that is amazing to see God working in that man's life, right?
Yeah.
Well, as God would have it, when Jim went up to give the lesson, and we moved back to the prayer stations, he's the first guy that walks back there. And so, I mean, it was like that guy, like you and me, and I'm like, oh, this is totally God here. And so I looked at this guy, and I was like, hey, you know, I saw you singing, and just started a dialogue and started talking to him. And guess what? He was from Fort Worth, Texas, okay? And again, this man, you could tell he had a past. And he looked at me and he's like, you could probably tell I'm an ex-gang member. And he's like, Jesus changed my life. And this guy's looking at me like, there's, I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I mean, it literally gave me chill bumps. And so I was just like, I said, you know, I'm so honored that you would come sit down and talk to me, and you know, and I said, I want, you know, what can we pray about? But you could see the change, and this is a person that you know, visually people might look at and maybe have a hard time talking to him, and Jesus changed his life, and it was unbelievable. I mean, I held this guy's hand, we prayed, and he got up and walked away, and I hugged him, and it was just to experience that and be able to give and receive that, it's life-changing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's just something.
Well, there's a story that I remembered about a fellow named TJ, and he had tattoos on his face. And I was in a prayer station while somebody else was preaching. And you know how we always encourage people to get up in the middle of the service because we've got a lot of people to pray for, so don't wait until the end. But anyway, so he came over about halfway through the message, sat down for prayer, and I asked him, so what'd you think of the sermon? And he said, yeah, it's good. And I said, well, where are you at with that? How does that apply to you? And he said, well, it doesn't really apply to me. And I said, what do you mean? It applies to everybody. He said, yeah, but you don't know what I've done. You don't know what I've done.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, no, I don't know what you've done, but it applies to you. The gospel of grace is for you. So we had a good gospel conversation, and he ended up coming to praying to receive the Lord that day, which is incredible. So right now we're not currently able to do baptisms, but back a couple of years ago we were able to do the baptisms just about every time we went out there. So we had a horse trough that we'd baptize these guys in. And so the next time I went out there, TJ got baptized, and I've got a picture still. We'd give them a baptismal certificate. So there he is smiling. Now he's smiling, all smiles, holding up his certificate, his baptismal certificate. I thought, that's fabulous.
So
That's
great,
a mental image I've got that lives with me. So
That's
we saw
so great.
the change in that man's life. But
Okay, you have to remember this guy, Jim. It isn't a guy who wasn't a preacher, I believe, in a Christian church. I don't know what denomination, and he was inmate because what he did, he has a relationship with a minor. I understand that he go and confess his sin to the police. He turned in himself, and that's how he end in prison. So the first time I talked with this guy, because he was a Spanish guy, he was so depressive. He was so low. He was so, how do you say that? No hope for himself. So he wasn't crying, but his pain was so hard that I can feel it. As we mentioned before, we are no professional preachers. We don't. We read a little bit, and that's it. But somehow, something pops in my head, and I tell him. I remember I was furious. Honestly, I was kind of furious. Do I have to remember you what the Bible say about the sin that the Lord forgive all of them? Who do you think you are to feel in that way? Who do you think you are to feel worse than Paul? Where is your faith? And I remember the guy cried a couple tears, just a couple tears. He hugged me and he walked away. The next time when we coming back, man, that man was a different person, totally different person.
right.
That was, I told you, I was angry. I wasn't preaching. I was really angry with him because he forget what the Bible say. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's encouraging every time we go, and it's a transition unit, so these guys generally are moved out of there pretty quickly and sent to another maximum security prison. But some of them are around for a couple of years in that one facility. But it's encouraging every time we go and see some of the same guys, and you see how they've grown and how they're so anxious to see us and
Right.
hug our necks and show appreciation for what we've done. So, but
That's the more amazing part for me, how they grow. Okay, I understand that they have a lot of time to study the Bible inside, right? But doesn't mean the Bible is going to got you. Doesn't mean the Holy Spirit is going to get inside you like that. But what you mentioned was really important for me. We go 1 month and 3 months later we get back and they grow up in faith. Right. They grow up in knowledge, and that is amazing. That's priceless. When you go to the prison, there is a lot of black energy inside. When you go to the hospital, this is a people who has a lot of illness, sickness, and they are depressive, anxieties, and the same things happen in both places and another one more. So when Jesus tells us to go there, so he knows we have to be the light inside those dark and places, because the people who is in jail, they believe that's it. There's no more life for me, and they are grown. They need to know. They need to know there is a different kind of life. Yeah. Maybe not in this one, but the next one for sure. Yeah. So that's what I believe what we are doing. Yeah. Matthew 25th.
Yeah, I think when we realize that God loves them every bit as much as he loves us, right. When we have that attitude, that makes it easier to minister to these guys. But again, I love doing it because I think it's impacting them, but it's really impacting me, and it's one of the favorite things that I do, because when you see a man pass from death to life right in front of you, there's just nothing better than that. Just an amazing
Absolutely.
thing. So.
It's great. The first time I went, and we went to the SEG unit, or solitary confinement.
Yeah, the segregation unit.
Right.
Yeah.
And these are men that are on complete lockdown. And so we go in, and they announce that we're there, and we're given instructions. And all there is just an opening like this, and and some glass that you can look through. And these are people at that place in their life. And here you are, and you're going door to door, and you're saying, is there anything I can pray for? That, if there's anything where you will experience someone that is absolutely at the bottom, in absolute need, when you see that, and you have that opportunity to pray with those people, that is incredible. I mean, there's life-giving hope going there, and I've seen that in my own life. And then the other thing that really, and I don't remember which one it wasn't the first one, but multiples down, and I looked down at the end, and Jim was presenting the gospel to a guy on the last door. I remember seeing you doing this, and that's life-changing. Yes, I mean, it gives me chill bumps to sit and talk about it right now, because these are the people that are the most desperate of the desperate in that unit.
Yeah. One of the things that had the most impact on me, another guy that I got to know pretty well over the I guess, about a year's time span. His name was Joe, and the first time I saw him, he was looked like he had just come into prison. He's a small guy, Hispanic fella, and he had a severe head injury where the top of his head was mashed in. And I thought, oh my God, this poor guy. And I could tell he was new to prison and he didn't know what was going to happen while he was in there. But I made a point of greeting him, and every time I'd go back, I saw that he was getting to be in a better and better mood. And I'd sent him the Bible study that the church has, the Christ-Centered Life Bible study, and he filled the whole thing out, which takes some work, and he sent it back to me. And I was just astounded. He shared a bit of his testimony, how he'd come to the Lord. But I think the last time I saw him is one of our team members, Greg, who's a disabled fellow, and which is amazing that we've had several guys that have gone that have been somewhat disabled or challenged themselves, had a hard time walking the whole distance. Anyway, Greg was in that category. It's difficult for him to walk, but he'd walk the 400 yards or whatever it was to go to the chapel. And he was in one of the prayer stations, and he was praying for Joe. So here's a disabled man praying for another disabled man. And when I saw that, the picture was that's exactly why we're doing what we're doing, because we're all disabled.
All of
we're,
us,
We're a
yes.
blind beggar showing another blind beggar where to find bread, and that was a perfect picture of that. And so that was a special moment. And then there's so many special moments because when we baptize these guys, it's just amazing. I mean, it's exciting when we baptize people here at Doxology, but when you baptize, just 100 in a day or whatever in the same horse trough, and when they go down to the water and then they come out, and
The happiness,
Yeah.
happiness you see in their faces, that feeling that they have inside. They are shaking because it's cold, but
yeah,
man,
Yeah.
that is.
And one of the things I love to see, there's a lot of things about the prison ministry I love. I love greeting the guys when they come in, looking in their eyes and loving on them when they come in and when they go out. But the other thing that's the most special thing to me is seeing, like you guys and the other guys, and they're out there ministering. Sometimes we take people that have never really done much ministry at all. I remember one time I took a guy, and he'd been in the church for a long time, but he commented when it was over. In fact, that was the very first time we went out there. He said, I prayed with a man to receive the Lord, and I've never done that. I've never prayed with somebody and helped them cross the line, and he was just, excited about that. And so when I see our guys ministering, when they never had the wherewithal, the opportunity, the encouragement, or whatever, to do one-on-one ministry, but when I see them sharing Christ or praying with somebody, that blesses my heart to see that. So, and it stretches us. But I've seen all the guys we've taken. I've never had anybody go out there and say, "Oh, I'll never do that again." I've had a lot of people say, or not a lot, but some people say, "I don't know if I want to do that or not." You guys were the anxious ones. I appreciate that. But I've never had anybody say that was a waste of time. Everybody, would you agree?
No.
Everybody comes
No.
out and they say that was a fabulous day. So, what would you guys say to somebody else that might be listening to this and say, "Well, I don't know, maybe prison ministry is, for me, or maybe it's not"? How would you answer that? How would you encourage them?
Well, for me, and you and I've talked about it before. It's an incredible ministry opportunity. I think you take that to prayer, put that into prayer. I think the Lord speaks to you. That's the first place to start.
Yeah.
It's a fabulous ministry. You can, the three of us are talking about all the great greatness in it. But I think that's the first place. But I think you've hit on some things, because it will strengthen you, outside of just the prison ministry. It strengthens you with your neighbors.
Yeah.
I've talked to people before, and I'm really excited about going to Doxology, about the ministry opportunities. And somebody else said, "Well, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, we have a prison ministry." Whoa. That gets people's attention. They're like, "Wow," and it opens up opportunity to talk to people, and I think it shows a little depth too. It's great to go to services. You should, but when you have an opportunity to step into a ministry, I think it takes you deeper in your relationship with Christ, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Well, here at Doxology, we're all about engaging in Christ, transforming in community, but then the second or the third part is engaging your world, and that's what we're doing.
Right.
You know, we want to take the gospel out from our neighborhood, our community, our church, and take it to to other places where they're not hearing the gospel. And it is encouraging that there are other ministries that are a part of this now that are doing stuff. The first time I went, I thought we were the only ones, and it was overwhelming to me, thinking there's so many needs here. How in the world can we meet all these needs? Well, the Lord, you know, He didn't just call us; He's called a bunch of others to do that. But I saw that there was a need for evangelism. There was a need for discipleship and encouragement. They needed spiritual resources. They needed books and Bibles and Bible studies. They also need rehabilitation, you know, for like job training and things like that. But the real hard part is when they get out. You know, the transition homes.
Yes.
How do you do that? How do you train somebody to successfully transition into the free world, and then to continue to shepherd them? It's just a long process, and we can't do all that. And I've realized the Lord perhaps has called us to do one segment, which is going in, providing worship services, encouraging the men. It's evangelistic, but also it's discipleship related.
Right.
But thankfully, there's other ministries like Bill Glass Behind the Walls, the Hope Prison Ministry that has transition homes. And so I'd like us to partner with those guys, because there are others that have the same passion for the inmates as we do, but they've got an expertise and opportunities in a different area. So
there is too much need there, physical, spiritually, material needs, books, they need resources, they need places where to go, where to start. And that's so hard to accomplish. It is so complicated to give them everything what they need. We cannot do that. We cannot provide for them everything. We cannot fix life. It's not our job. Our job is only share the gospel. I really appreciate the opportunity that you give me to do this with you,
Amen.
Jim. Honestly, I really appreciate that opportunity, because put me back, not only with my brother experience, not only with these people inside of the jail, it's because in some point of my life, I should be inside, you know what I mean? I deserve to be inside. So we are clear that we need to share the gospel all around the world. That's mandatory for us, right? So if you don't know you can fit in this ministry, just take a shot, try.
Right.
It's good for you, it's good for you.
Right.
It doesn't good for you, it doesn't good for him. So let's give us a shot, try, come with us, and spend one day. Believe me, it is worthy. You don't spend the day for nothing. It's really worthy just to be there. So come by, try, and let's see what happens. And you're welcome.
Well, you know, Jesus says to go to the who? The hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, the naked, and the imprisoned. You know, basically those that are, you know, really down in life, that are discouraged, that don't have any hope. That's specifically who he sends us to. And I think it's great that we go to prison, but I think he's talking about broader than that, because that really describes everybody, doesn't it? It kind of describes us, that describes our neighbors. And so I see the prison ministry serves as a training ground or a jumping off point to ministry at other places. There's another ministry that I've participated with called Bill Glass Behind the Walls, and they do big events like the first event I went to, where they come in with a bunch of guys and they provide some entertainment. They try to get everybody out of their cells that doesn't normally go to church. And they present the gospel. They have, you know, other events going on. Anyway, they're a prison ministry. But I mentioned to the director I called them a prison ministry. He said, "No, we're not a prison ministry." I said, "What do you mean? You go into prisons like every 2 weeks? You're going into prisons and evangelizing?" He said, "No, we're an evangelism training ministry. So what we do is train people how to share the gospel, and then we take them in to a place where people are ready to receive the gospel." So it goes back to, you know, you teach a man how to fish, and then you take him to the fishing hole where the fish are biting. And so we don't want it to end there. We don't want our people to go in and just evangelize inmates and then go back to their community, back to their home, back to their family, and not do the same thing. And so it's a training ground for that. And I thought, exactly. And that's what my prayer is for our group, is that we I mean, it's exciting to go to prison every couple of months or whenever we go, but I really want I want myself to be living this out every day with my neighbors, with my family, with other people that we run into. And then if that's what's going on, if that's what happens, then I think the mission of the Matthew 25 team is really being accomplished.